Just to make sure that we say that we have a dense agenda today, and
Okay.
so
Okay.
I had a plan.
You had a plan?
Yeah.
All right, you're doing the intro.
And good morning, and welcome to day 2 of ISE in Barcelona. We're happy to have you here in the Microsoft podcast studio, and today we're going to cover a lot of topics. We're going to start with the Teams device playbook, and then you have a nice setting of what's up with Teams Rooms Copilot and AI at 11. You're going to hear our esteemed OEM colleagues throughout Lenovo, Yale, Logitech, and Cisco. And then we have some great stuff coming out a bit later on with an interview with Sandhya Rao and Ask Me Anything. And to top it off at 5 with some more Surface Hub 3 stuff. But today, we are going to start with the Teams device playbook. My name is Robert Karlsson. I work as a senior specialist in the EMEA Teams devices team. And with me, I have a couple of great colleagues.
Thanks. I'm Matt Slomka. I'm part of the Teams product group and help customers be successful deploying Teams rooms.
I'm Andrew Higgs, and I'm also a senior specialist in the Teams room space for the Asia region.
Great stuff. And I'm so happy that we have Matt with us today, because you are the person to talk about the Teams device playbook for sure. And we are going to ask you a lot of questions today about how to use it, what it is, what you can do with it. So take it away. What is it?
Looking forward to walking through it. So the device deployment playbook was created by myself and a couple of others on the team, focused on kind of giving customers a set of best practice guidance on how to walk through deploying Teams devices. So all the way from what are Teams devices, how do you configure Teams devices, how do you select the right Teams device for your space? Because genuinely part of the conversation is, well, how do I know which device fits where? And then, okay, great, now you've picked what device type you want to deploy. Now, how do you make sure that you deploy it and you're ready to deploy at scale? Because one of the hardest things to do is, like, you can install one device on your desk, that's one thing, but making sure that you're successful to have 1,000 device deployment, like we've got customers with thousands of devices deployed following the best practice guidance that we've outlined here.
So having these documented processes, these best practices, and a single document for our partners and our customers to be able to follow, to be able to use best practices for deploying not only Teams rooms, but also Teams phone devices as well, capturing that entire ecosystem. And the thing that I personally love about this device playbook myself is that it's an ongoing, evolving live document that obviously grows, because as you can appreciate, there are so many new features that are landing on Teams devices and so forth. And you guys are working tirelessly to keep it updated
all the time,
current, so that when new features land, our partners and customers can refer to that one document in order to be able to build those best practices into the way that they deploy their rooms.
Exactly. And I mean, case in point, the other day, I updated the device deployment playbook to reference the changes that had happened from Surface Hub recently, where we moved from Windows 10 TeamOS to the new Teams rooms on Surface Hub operating system and setup model, like the device we've got running behind us here today. So all that documentation, it's a living, breathing document. We have it up on that really long aka.ms link there, but very easily called out so that you can go and reference that at any time and get the current version of the doc.
Yeah, it's great.
That's amazing. And also, you can use the QR code, of course, to use the short version of it. So use your camera, point it at the QR code, and then you're good to go.
Absolutely.
So I think you started to tell the story behind it.
Yeah.
But, so who is going to use this? Partners, customers?
I like to say it's kind of open to everybody.
Yep.
So the intent, and it's written very simply so that anybody can pick it up and run with it. So everything that you'll see in the device deployment playbook is actually content that is available publicly on our learn.microsoft.com website. So despite the fact that we do have all of the documentation here, it's really just a collated copy of all of the Learn documents with a order around it, so that it's a really easy reference guide. But genuinely, customers, partners, I've had everybody from small, medium business all the way up to large enterprise customers walk through this document. And it's a great introduction, too, if it's kind of the beginning of your Teams device deployment playbooks. Or your Teams device deployment story. Sorry, one too many words there. To learn about what you need to do in kind of all-encompassing conversation on that.
Yeah, so the thing that you highlighted earlier was that this document is able to help many of our partners and customers to be able to also navigate device selection as well. Also, going through and detailing each of the steps that we require to be able to deploy those best practices, everything from account creation and so forth. And we're going to go into that in a little bit later, but give us an overview. When we get to the device playbook, break down each of the sections for us and what we're actually going to be able to extract out of this.
Yeah, I think so. We've kind of broken it down into a couple of different sections. So we start with just kind of an overview of what our Teams device is, what our certified device is, and then we walk through step by step. How do you select the right Teams device for your space? Because that is a really big part of the conversation. Now, we have partners that help customers in that conversation too, but calling out at a high level so you can make a knowledgeable choice.
Yeah.
Then once you've decided, we walk through step by step how to configure your environment to support Teams devices at scale. And then expand into that into ensuring that you're doing it in a secure way and you're doing it in a stable way, making sure your network is configured so that you can actually get the device working. Because the worst case scenario is you take a Teams device out of the box, you follow all of our best practice guidance, you go to deploy it on your corporate network, and the firewall is blocking teams.microsoft.com, and the device doesn't work.
Yeah.
And having all of that outlined so you can hand it to your firewall team, so you can hand it to your network team and know, here's the things I need to do. All of that's called out as well as we walk through the deck here.
Yeah, I love that.
So perhaps we should just ground the fact, what is a Teams device, right? Because we say Teams devices, we have a lot of different ones, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So just like the short version, what do we define as a Teams device?
So a Teams device is a purpose-built device to run Microsoft Teams.
Yeah.
So be it a phone that runs the Teams phone application on it, be it a Teams Room, be it Windows or Android that runs the Teams Room application. And again, a purpose-built device to function in that space. There's Teams panels and Teams displays as well to fit different use cases. But across the board, it is a purpose-built device to run Microsoft Teams. This deck is designed to talk through with customers on how to best enable those. This deck isn't really the other side of the Teams device ecosystem, which would be like your USB headsets, your webcams, things like that. Generally, those don't need a lot of explanation on how to deploy them. The goal is you plug them in and you're good. So this deck truly walks through the purpose-built devices.
So something with client on it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Good stuff. And we have a lot of guidance as well. So you alluded to that we're helping our customers and partners to choose the right type of solution for the right type of purpose or room size and such?
Correct.
I was going to say, the other thing, even if you notice like at ISE, there are so many partners with so many solutions on display. If I was a customer, I'd be completely overwhelmed by the choices that I have in front of me.
Right.
So seeing all these solutions on play, it's like, well, how do I make an informed decision on which devices I want in my various meeting spaces? Choosing personal devices, shared spaces, everything from small, medium, large rooms. How do you make that choice?
Yeah. So what we've got here in the playbook is truly to kind of help customers understand that conversation and partners navigate that conversation with customers too, and give kind of a framework. Because the one thing, my favorite part about walking around ISE in the last a couple days is truly every single booth has Teams devices in it.
Absolutely.
And if I was a new customer coming into this space, I would be overwhelmed. I'd be like, well, do I buy this one? Do I buy this one? What makes sense here? So having a framework to kind of understand, like, is it a personal device and is it fitting into a personal space? Is it something that, you as a user are going to use on your desk, in your office, or is it something that's going to go into a shared space? That immediately takes your decision group in half, because generally about half of our devices fit into a shared space model and half fit into a personal device model. So just helping to narrow down that experience. And then what user experience are you driving towards? Do you want something that's just a phone? There's something very satisfying about hanging up the phone and that tangible experience that you get there. And so do you want that? And is that the experience you're looking towards? Or are you looking more towards, I want a shared room space, and helping navigate that? And then what operating system do I want it to run? Or maybe what form factor do I want it to land into?
Absolutely.
And just kind of understanding a bit of that. And then the last piece is, are there accessories that come along with it? As with every conversation that I think we have here at ISE, is Copilot part of the conversation?
Sure.
So
Copilot.
do I need to have an intelligent speaker to be able to identify who said what in a room?
Yeah.
Because that becomes a really important thing in a shared space. In a personal space, it's signed in with your identity. I know who said it.
That's right.
So just understanding that and mapping all of that out for customers, we map all of that out in the playbook. And we do it by device type, so you can actually understand how that all maps out. And then from there, you can click into that, and it'll take you right to how to configure that device.
Nice.
So one part that I really love is the part that we do certified our vendors' devices. There's a rigid process around it. You just
Yes.
don't have any device to be certified, right?
Correct.
So
Yeah.
this is a process that is well documented. It's well managed since many, many years.
Yes. Yeah. For we're probably 10 years into the certification program at this point. But Teams devices started as Skype certified devices and started as Link certified devices beyond that.
Yeah.
But it's a certification set of standards that set both, does the device meet what we need and what we expect from a functionality perspective,
Yeah.
but also from a quality bar. Because there's one thing to be like, oh yeah, hey, this device can do this, but does it meet the video quality that we expect? Does it meet the audio quality that we expect? We certify devices for different size spaces. So the concept of taking, say a small form factor bar type solution, that's not going to fit a room that seats 20 people because that microphone isn't going to pick up the folks in the back of the room. And so we actually go through that full set of certification in order to ensure that that device is going to function in the space it's intended to. So there is a very rigid process around it in order to ensure that we have a quality set of devices for our customers.
So you're not just Teams certified, you're also certified for use case or
Correct.
room size in that sense.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes.
Okay, so moving in perhaps to all the bits and pieces of how to do this.
Sure.
It's a great way of following the steps, right? On first to the last part. So you divided into different sorts of elements and how to consider this.
Yeah.
Talk us through it.
Yeah. So what we kind of outline here is how to look at deploying devices at scale. And so some of the considerations that you need to do around it, because helping customers understand like, hey, I picked this device, but how do I then framework that out across a set of spaces? So, generally in most organizations, there's a small conference room that maybe seats 6 people, medium conference room, let's say that seats 12 people, and then a large conference room might seat 20. I've had customers with 5-way divisible rooms that seat 200 people. I mean, you can scale out Teams rooms across all those spaces, but having a set of standards for your organization so that one office doesn't have this type of device and another office has this type and another office has this type, because from an operations perspective, that just hurts from a scalability side. Yeah. And, from a purchasing perspective too, and an alignment on partners, from that perspective, having one set of partners to work with works out really well.
Yeah.
So, and then the last piece is just kind of from an implementation perspective, what do you want to look at for that? So you've picked your devices, you've picked at scale, you know what you want to do across 100 or 1,000 rooms. Now, how do you just make sure that you can manage, implement, and monitor those? And that's what we walk through in the next set of steps here.
Yeah, it's one of the probably one of my favorite parts of the device playbook is how you carefully and articulately call out every single step that a partner or customer needs to follow in order to be able to deploy these devices. Everything from resource account creation and how to secure those devices, license allocation, and following all the steps. One of the challenges is that when you take a Teams Rooms device out of the box, you need to be informed on how you're actually going to deploy it. That's why we have such an amazing partner ecosystem of partners that are supporting our customers to be able to deploy these devices. Yes,
Exactly.
They are designed to be easy to use.
Yes.
But to be able to make sure that they are fit for purpose inside of your customer's organization, it's important to follow the carefully detailed guide that you guys have put together in order to do that. Do we want to step through just some of the features that we
Sure. I mean, we have done this for each device type. So there's like step-by-step guide for every type. I mean, we're not going to show you all device types because then we will need more time.
Yes. But we could roll through 2 hours of this if you'd like.
So just let's focus on the Windows part.
Sure.
Yeah,
Teams Rooms and Windows. That's a specific solution that we have.
Yes. So out of all the Teams devices, this is the first one in the deployment guide. So Teams Rooms on Windows, we walk through step-by-step how to do a deployment of Teams Rooms on Windows devices. Now, this goes through creating the resource account, ensuring that the right exchange policies are set so that someone can actually book that conference room. Out of the box, you can't book it. Making sure that password expiration is disabled so that from an operations perspective, your rooms don't suddenly stop working midway through because 90 days later, oh, well, my password expired and now my room doesn't work. And it's like, well, what happened? It's like, well, you let the password expire.
Exactly.
Going through and making sure that a Teams Rooms license is assigned to it so that the device functions. And then kind of taking a look even further, do you a phone number assigned to that room? Do you want that room to be able to make not only a Teams call, but maybe just a PSTN call? And making sure that you understand what functionality you can go through there. And then we also walk through how to create some resource accounts to do some of the Intune enrollment pieces and some of the scoping to just kind of make deployments easier at scale. So all of that is called out in the device deployment playbook, step by step by step. and it's intended to be a checklist. And then what you see inside of it there is the click here.
Yeah.
That is a direct link to the Microsoft Learn article that talks through step by step how to actually do that thing. This I look at as like a high level overview so that you understand what you're getting into. But then truly, if you don't understand how to create a resource account, click the click here link. We walk through it step by step.
Yeah. I love it that one of them that you mentioned there is like the IP addresses, because Microsoft, we bring on data centers all the time globally, right?
Yep.
You know, we're a massive global organization bringing on new data centers. So those set of IP addresses, that's a ever-changing thing. You know, so when customers are saying, yeah, we try to sign in and it's not signing in, it's like, hey, refer to the device playbook.
Yeah.
Let's go through and go through the checklist. Oh, one of them is the IP address ranges. Let's update our firewall ACLs and make sure that we're have included all the new IP ranges that Microsoft have listed.
Exactly. Yeah. And then, I mean, even taking this a step further from a deployment perspective. So, you know, there's the operational aspects of like making sure that my device works and stays online.
Yeah.
Then there's the other piece of how do you want to further secure your MTR? So, hey, you know, out of the box, a Teams room on Windows device, the default password is SFB. It has been for the entire time it's been a product.
Right.
Well, when we first rolled out the alerts in the Pro Portal for, hey, who's got the default credentials, 90% of devices deployed across the globe still had the default password as SFB. That's a fun little tidbit there. Since we've rolled out that alert, though, we've warned everybody that, hey, here it is. And now that number has been dramatically reduced. But we would talk through, how do you change that? How do you set up an out-of-box procedure to change that default admin password so that when you're going through at scale, you don't have to remember, oh, let me do this, let me edit this, let me change this. No, it just changes it automatically as part of the Intune setup process. And so how do we build a lot of that deployment piece into there so that you can have that? And now what you see here in the deployment playbook today leads into our conversation tomorrow around autopilot and one-time passcode too, of how do you even further speed up deployment. This gets you all of the Intune pieces that make the deployments easier later.
And no matter if you love PowerShell or if you like to do it by the portals, you can have guidance, right?
Exactly. Yeah, this walks through both sides, PowerShell or through the GUI, whatever makes sense for you and makes sense for your organization.
Yeah, great stuff. Yes. And I do know that the next topic is something that you both are really happy to talk about.
Security and compliance, aren't we?
Exactly.
Yes, we are.
So let's spend some time around the security and network conditions, and then also some conditional access rules, because that is so important to get the grip of and to understand. And I know that you can do this for hours.
Oh, yeah.
But we're not going to do that
today.
Oh, come on. But a bit more deep dive than what we alluded to in the beginning. So what do you need to think about here?
So from a security perspective, there's a couple of key areas to look at for Teams rooms. The first step is what I tend to coach the customers through is for the resource accounts themselves. So the resource accounts are genuinely just like a user account. So at the beginning, when you create a resource account, it has the same level of permissions that any other user in your organization does.
Yeah.
But you don't want it to have that same level of access. Now, we actually have to take it and change that security a little bit. So from a password expiration perspective, you may expire passwords on your user accounts. You don't want to do that in your rooms because you don't want to change the password every 30 days. But then at the same time, a room doesn't have an iPhone to click the approve button on. So now you're telling me that I've lowered my security posture because I've turned off password rotation. But now you're also telling me I can't have MFA because it doesn't have an iPhone. So, well, then how do I secure these accounts and make sure that no one can log into them? And the answer is you still enforce multi-factor. You don't enforce multi-factor through a push notification to another device. There are ways that you can use conditional access to actually lock down those accounts and say that, hey, maybe the answer is I want it to only be able to sign in from my local corporate network. Yeah. Okay, that helps the security posture, but that's not the full story because someone could still use that account on a different device on my corporate network. So how do I lock it down another step further? And you can actually use trusted and compliant devices to do that. The goal is, and what I like to say for customers is, I want you to have a spreadsheet with all of your rooms' usernames and passwords on them. And now we have a whole methodology where you no longer have your rooms' usernames and passwords, but let's say you have a spreadsheet with all of that and you go to tweet about it and put it on X and decide to post it publicly. The goal is with conditional access that account is still not able to be used by anybody else except your device. That helps the security conversation. And that is the overarching goal of everything that we outlined in this playbook is make sure that even if someone knows the username and password, they can't do anything with it.
So just to recap there, you're saying that conditional access, which is part of obviously that Teams Rooms Pro license, there was a device in my office and someone stole it from my office. They try to take it home, plug it in. It's not going to work.
Correct.
Because it's only going to sign in from a trusted location inside of that corporate network.
Exactly.
So any place outside of that corporate network, it's just not going to work. On 4G, on a public Wi-Fi, it's not going to sign in. It's only going to sign in from inside of that corporate network. So eliminating the requirement for having multi-factor authentication and being able to have trust that device is only going to work inside the office. I love that.
Yeah. That's my favorite conversation when we were talking through this. Was I had a customer who suggested that we would have their facilities person have their phone be the MFA for all of the room accounts.
Yeah.
And I went, so you're telling me that at 2 a.m. your facilities person is going to hit
approving all sign-ins.
And I'm like, that's really not scalable. So no, lock it down, still lock down that device, but don't enforce it in a user interactive methodology because it's not going to work.
Absolutely. And obviously the device playbook talks a bit further about local policies and obviously the other best practices around group policy and how to obviously manage devices. Intune is number one, is definitely referenced there. And understanding the differences, because what many customers get confused is compliance policies with Intune and conditional access policies. And those are two fundamentally different,
totally separate
products.
pieces.
Yeah.
They
Absolutely.
blend together, and as we get a little bit further into here, we can actually see an example of that. But yes, and this actually talks through it right there from a conditional access perspective. There's conditional access, and then there's the Intune compliance side of it to go, is this a device that I actually trust? Is this something that I would want on my corporate network? Does it hit a security bar? Is it encrypted? Is it rooted? Has someone gone through and rooted it to where now they have access to developer modes where maybe they've side-loaded a different app onto the device? That has a security challenge to it. So you want to make sure that device actually meets the security posture requirements for your organization. That's where the compliance piece comes in. And then conditional access is a layer on top of it to say, this device is only going to function if it's compliant and if it's coming from my corporate network. And for the Android devices, you can even layer it further to say, it can only be a Poly device that signs in, or a Cisco device, or a Neat device, or you can even get more granular.
A specific model.
It's a specific model of device. So what that helps prevent is, someone went and bought another device and they want it to sign in on the corporate network and function. Or if you're an organization that has a strict, like we only use audio codes phones, for instance, and someone in your organization goes and buys a Poly phone and tries to sign it in with their own account, you can actually prevent that as well from a conditional access perspective.
I love it.
Great stuff. Anything else you would like to cover on this part, or going to more or less
we
wrap
hit on
it
a
up?
lot of it. I think we can roll through some management conversation briefly, and then I think that covers most of it.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
So we have different ways of taking care of the devices, right?
Yes.
We talk about Teams Admin Center. We talk about the Pro Management Portal as another way. And we're really building out the Pro Management Portal as the portal to work from, right?
Yes.
So anything that you would like to talk about regarding how best practices are?
Yeah. So I think, as you look at the Teams devices across the entire ecosystem, what you'll notice is that every single device is manageable in Teams Admin Center. Yeah. And I want to start with Teams Admin Center because every single device across the board has visibility in Teams Admin Center. But for a lot of organizations, particularly as you look at deploying rooms, you deploy rooms at scale in places where users aren't signing into them, users aren't managing them day to day, users aren't touching them. An IT admin comes on site once, installs that room, sets it up, and then leaves. Mm-hmm. And then there's no AV guy at that site to check it every morning and make sure it's working. There's none of that operational piece. So that's where the Pro Management Portal really shines, because then and you can have confidence that your team's rooms are online, your team's panels are online, your Surface hubs are online, and knowing that those devices are functioning and meeting the expectations across your organization, both from a supportability and a reliability perspective, and from a config management perspective, and from an update management perspective, to make sure that you're actually installing updates and making sure that those updates are getting there. And then maybe you want to scale and test those updates first. So maybe you've got rooms that are by your AV team. Well, cool. Install updates on those devices first. Maybe there's a change. Maybe Teams added a new feature that you want to be able to tell folks about. Install the updates on devices near you first, then scale it out. The Pro Management Portal allows you to do all of that.
So create rings is the best practice, right?
Exactly.
So rings.
Love some update rings.
Yeah, yes. I love it.
Yeah.
Us.
So we take that one step further. So obviously you've mentioned on the slide as well, third-party management tools. Again, so many OEMs with their devices on show at ISE.
Yes.
And also equally showing their cloud management platform as well, and the value that they bring with that. I love the fact that you call this out here, that that better together story with Teams Rooms Pro Management Portal, plus also the OEM management layer as well, in order to get that full 360-degree view. And there's going to be more device specific and less on the application side functions that need to be managed as well. And that could only be done through that third-party OEM management platform as well.
Correct. Yeah, that's the way I look at it, is exactly as you said it. Better together. We as Microsoft can manage Microsoft really, really well, and we can ensure that all of your devices are up to date. If there are OEM configs, third-party configuration management pieces that you want to be looking at, that's truly where the third-party tools shine.
Yeah.
So having both and having the ability to leverage both across your organization makes it so that you have a really good Teams device deployment story.
Yeah, I love that. Yes, it's fantastic.
Okay, so we're hitting the bottom of the hour quite soon. So let's just circle back, I think, to the QR code where you can find the always updated deployment playbook.
Always up
You
to
have
date.
the link as well. Are you shorting the link or?
We are working on shortening the link. I have a shorter one. I like this one though. It's in English and it's
That's what
easily
it is.
understandable.
Yeah, sure.
But it's
But
important to bookmark it, right?
It's important
because
to
it's an
bookmark.
evolving document. Absolutely.
and bookmark the short link, because occasionally we update the document and then that updates to the short link. So make sure you bookmark the short link there and you're able to find it. Also, inside of the full device deployment playbook, we've walked through maybe 10 slides of the 60-something slides in the deck. With the full device deployment playbook, there is also a link there to provide feedback. So if you use the device deployment playbook and you're happy about it, would love to hear that you're happy about it. If you use the device deployment playbook, look at it and go, oh God, this was missing. You guys had no idea what you were doing. Let me know that too, because we will take that feedback and run with it also. Because there's been some great things that folks have caught along the way, or some suggestions of like, it'd be really great if you guys had this in the deck, or it'd be really great if this was there. And I take that feedback, and that feedback comes to me and the rest of my team, and we go through and evaluate, okay, let's go make an edit, let's go make an update, and take that feedback to heart also. So absolutely go use the device deployment playbook, partners, customers, everybody across the board.
Fantastic.
So thank you so much. Please come back to our sessions throughout the coming days, and see you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it, buddy. Thank you.
Hey, cheers.